All right, everyone, welcome to another Saturday morning coffee chat with Elizabeth, Foss, and I. We're so excited that you're here. This whole Zoom virtual moms get together thing started very last minute when self-isolation looked imminent. Elizabeth and I were texting saying, what can we do? What can we do to help other moms? What can we do to have some sort of community and chat through the different topics and issues that we're all facing as moms and having to figure out really, really quick, kind of on the fly, regarding being home with our families a little bit more and navigating so many different things. So today we're going to be talking about Holy Week and Easter at home and what that's going to look like and what we can do as moms to foster our faith and this most important liturgical season in our families as best we can while we are all still isolated. So our special guest today is Kendra Tierney. Many of you know her for her blog, Catholic All Year, and also her book by the same title, Catholic All Year, a compendium for liturgical living for real life. Kendra, we are so happy that you have taken time so early in the morning for California time to be with us. For any of our listeners or anyone listening to the recording who aren't familiar with you, can you just introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about your very small house and your very small family out there in California?
Yeah, so I have, my name's Kendra Tierney. I've got 10 kids from almost 6 months to almost 18. We live in Los Angeles County, near Pasadena, where the Rose Parade is. And I, sort of my passion in life is liturgical living in the home. And I never for a minute thought that would end up being the only liturgical part of my life. It's never supposed to be like this. But yeah, I inadvertently find myself really well prepared for this most unlikely of Holy Weeks. So hopefully I can help you guys too.
Oh, I know that you will. Now, Kendra, just tell us a little bit about how you became so passionate about this topic of liturgical living and living the life of the church in the home. How did you first get interested in this topic and kind of get going yourself with this topic?
Yeah, so when my husband and I first became parents, I guess, we're sort of all on this faith journey, right? There's always so much more to learn and discover. And so we were on this journey together. And as we started to have kids, we decided that, we wanted to really deepen our faith and do the hard stuff. We wanted to make sure that we were saying the family rosary, that we were getting to mass every Sunday and extra masses. And we wanted to, fast on the fasting days. And as we were doing that, all that is good and important, and we should all be doing it. But I sort of realized that I was presenting an incomplete picture of our faith to our kids and to ourselves, because it's not just sitting quietly for the rosary. It's also eating waffles for the Feast of the Annunciation. There are two sides to our faith historically, and there always have been these fun and funny and like really quirky sense of humor type liturgical celebrations. And as I started looking into and discovering these, I realized that it really gives you the both sides of our faith, that there are these fun and funny and inspirational celebrations that help us to learn about the lives of the saints and the important truths of our faith that can be kind of complicated, and but it's a way to learn and to celebrate and to enjoy, and it's just worked out so well for our family.
And so many of these things can be super simple and super easy. It's not like you have to prepare hours and hours. Like, you're the one who taught our family to eat spaghetti right from the table on St. Joseph's Day. I mean, like, so simple. It's like, you have to eat anyway. Might as well make it fun and memorable, right? So these don't have to all be super complicated, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I always tell people, if what I do seems crazy to you, don't do it. Do something that works for you. And everything that we do in our liturgical living in the home is focused on doing on just sort of tweaking something that we would be doing anyway. So like you said, my kids insist on eating dinner every night, and so if I'm going to be cooking dinner anyway, if I can plan ahead a little bit, and I am not a organized planner aheader on things. I'm not a big meal planner. I'm a glance at the calendar on the way out the door to the grocery store and realize, oh, this Italian saint is coming up. I will make sure we have spaghetti in the house so that we can have a discussion over dinner about why we're having this. If you're more of a takeout person, you can do takeout. If you're more of an arts and crafts person, which I am definitely not, an arts and a structured arts and crafts time person, but if you are, there are so many beautiful crafts and things that you could do, outings in other times, and so anything, whatever you usually do with your family, you just tweak it a little bit to stimulate conversation.
So we're hoping that you'll take us through Holy Week, and we'll go day by day and maybe have some suggestions for you, things we could do each day. But before we get into that, maybe you can talk just for a minute about why this week that we are about to enter is the perfect time to start having some of these liturgical traditions in your home. If you've never done it before, this time of self-isolation might actually be a huge blessing and a gift to start and just discover this for your own family. So can you just talk about that in general, why this week is so important first, and then we'll get into some nitty-gritty details here.
Yeah, so really, we know, of course, that Easter is the most important feast day on the liturgical calendar, and these days leading up to it, in Holy Week, really do help us prepare. And not just for our kids, although kids are the best motivation I have found for actually making this stuff happen, but for everyone in our family, including ourselves, to put in the time, especially in a year that is so crazy like this, when we are prevented, many of us, from the sacraments and from the Mass, to sort of lean into our domestic church. And I always have to say, as I've been talking about this, I've been talking about liturgical living in the home to a lot of people this week, and I have to always say, I love the domestic church. I love liturgical living in the home, but it is not the same as the liturgy. It is not the same as the Mass. And while we can definitely use this week to create great memories with our family and learn things, we can never remember that this is a pale imitation, and all of this liturgical living in the home stuff was always intended to be beside the actual liturgy. So,
right.
I never want people to think that, that I'm content with what we're doing here. We're doing the best we can in our circumstances, but I certainly wouldn't want to confuse anybody that I think that,
sure.
That what we're doing is, it is actually a substitute for the real thing. But
absolutely,
what we're attempting here is using, all of these prayers and blessings and devotions really are sacramentals. And what a sacramental does is dispose us to better receive the grace of the sacraments. So what I'm sort of imagining is that through all of these devotions, through these prayers, through these through these traditional practices, we are increasing our bucket is getting bigger. And then when we can come back to the sacraments, we'll be able to receive more of the graces of the sacraments. We will have prepared ourselves as a fertile field in order so that when we can return to the Mass, and we can return to the sacraments, it'll be that much more fruitful for us.
Beautiful. I love that. Well, let's jump in and talk about all of these very important days coming up. Let's start with Palm Sunday. And as we walk through, Elizabeth and I are hoping that you will give us like the simplest thing you do, because you are amazing and you can do so many things.
I am a known overdoer of things.
You are an overdoer. And I love that about you, because you're like someone I can look up to, like, okay, well, that's the goal right there. Let's see what I can do to, start down that path. But let's just start with some really practical, easy things that moms could do. And like keeping in mind that many of us can't go to the store right now. It's not running over to Walmart, Supercenter, or Hobby Lobby for craft supplies. It's really, what can we do at home, not being able to do a lot of shopping, to make this time extra special and point us to Christ. So what are some things for Palm Sunday that we could do to make it extra special?
Yeah, good news for you is I don't like leaving the house anyway, so most of my stuff does not depend on that. So the two things, as I was thinking about preparing for Palm Sunday, especially this year, when you think about Palm Sunday, what do you think about? The mass of people together on Jesus's entrance into Jerusalem. I was thinking about it, this last week, and just realizing, it seems so far apart from what we are experiencing now, that that mass of humanity, all these strangers coming together and walking with Christ to Jerusalem. We don't get to have that, but when I think about that Palm Sunday, which in our family has always been very mass centric and very centered on our parish. So what are the things that I don't want to miss and I don't want my kids to miss? And the two things are the blessing of palms and the reading of the Passion. And, if you remember, usually at Palm Sunday Mass, they break it into parts, and the priest reads Jesus, and there's, the deacon and the cantor, and there's the part where we, the congregation, reply, and we say, crucify him. And it's just always such a meaningful part, I think, of Holy Week, where, I don't want to give that up. So what I figured for my family, I wanted to look and figure out how can we have this blessed palms, because we can't get to them, and, we're not priests, so we can't create sacramentals. But I talked to a priest friend of mine, and he said, well, look around, see if you can find something that's specifically for lay people. And I did find in the USCCB, there's a book called Catholic Household Blessings and Prayers, all things that are specifically intended for use by laity. And there is a rite for the installation of palms in your house, and there's a beautiful blessing that goes along with it. You can find it in my latest blog post, and I also made it printable in case you want to download just the image. You're welcome to save that and print it off of the blog post. If you want the whole little ceremony, I made a little booklet of it, and you can get that in the shop. And then that's also
CatholicAllYear.com.
Yes.
CatholicAllYear.com. Okay.
Yeah, and anything that's just an image on the blog, you're welcome to save and print off of the blog. And the basic blessing is there. It's on it will be on my social media too, and you're welcome to save it and print it from there. And then I also made up a script so that we can do that. It's just the words of the gospel. It's not like, based on it or anything. It's just the words of the gospel broken up into the parts the way that it's usually done at Mass. So, it's really long, and for little kids, it's going to be a challenge. But, in our house, we have the big kids really participate, and the little kids kind of stay in the room and be not super distracting if possible. But, I don't think we need to have, we don't need to have, we don't need to imagine that it's all going to be perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. It wasn't perfect when it first happened. So just remembering that these days are important, and we want to do something to make them feel meaningful in our homes.
Right.
And to me, those things that I don't want to miss out on. Oh, and I should say, if you don't have access to palms, it doesn't have to be a palm. I went out in my neighborhood yesterday with my giant tree saw and walked around until I found a palm branch I wanted, and knocked on the door and asked if I could cut it down. And, they said yes, because they don't want to come out and talk to me.
I saw your picture of Anita running across the street with the palm on your Instagram. That was so cute.
Yeah,
But
we have pussy willows growing nearby,
Yes.
and
ooh,
I read that was an acceptable alternative. So
yes, absolutely. Yeah, olive branches, pussy willows, and palms are all traditionally used. But the blessing, all it says is branches, and you can use whatever you want. Somebody commented on my Facebook post about it that she was just going to go get some kale because she lives in Canada and there are no branches. So that's okay with me.
Yep. Hey, Melissa, Mark, can you show your construction paper palms too? I just saw you hold that up. So Melissa here, for those of you who are watching, she made some. So that's another idea too, just for if you have little kids to have a visual like that is awesome.
Absolutely. And take something like that and do a little procession, whether it's just from the front door to wherever your prayer space is in your house, or if you can get outside to go, all the way around your house. Kids love a procession, and these aren't sacramental palms, and you're not, worried about what Father is going to think. So they can wave their palms around and shout Hosanna, and we can find the joy in our domestic church in these days.
Mm-hmm. I love that. Now for Monday and Tuesday of Holy Week, do you still, is that still clean your house days at the Tierney house?
It is. It was funny. We were just doing our basic, usual tidy, get your socks out of the middle of the floor, kind of tidying yesterday. And my kids were like, is somebody coming over? No one is coming over. But that is usually the only thing that makes me really get the house clean is when people are coming over. So, but Jesus is coming, and so that's always been my biggest motivator the whole year, is to make sure that all those little nests in the corner, that those little stacks of stuff that I was going to get to, the half-finished project that I was going to finish any minute 6 months ago, this week is when that stuff gets cleaned up. And I know if I don't do it this week, it's not going to happen. So I have a whole little plan. Again, you can find this printable schedule of what we do, or it's in blog posts that I break it down exactly what we do. But your house is going to be different than mine, but I just break it down into, we actually clean out our closets. The kids get rid of clothes that they aren't wearing, and I vacuum the inside of my drawers. And I'm telling you, I am not a person who is excited by or motivated by or enjoys cleaning at all, but this is the week that I do it. And it's a whole family project. It tends for us to work better if we're all in one room doing stuff rather than, assigning one kid this room and one kid this room, because then I'm not watching them and nothing happens. But so we put on music, and we just, we break it down. We have specific things that we want to accomplish each day. So when that's done, then they're done and they can go play, and we'll finish the rest of it the next day. So we spend Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday really getting the house a deep clean. And again, it sets the stage. I like how C.S. Lewis talks so much about how we are body and soul. And so the things that we do with our bodies really affect our prayer life and our preparation too. And so even that act of scrubbing the floors and cleaning out the pantry, those things can be, a work of faith too.
Yep, that's beautiful. Well, let's talk about Wednesday and Spy Wednesday. This is something that I've never done with my kids, Kendra. So, and I didn't grow up with any Spy Wednesday tradition. So this will be our first time at our house trying it. But can you tell us a little bit about what you do on Wednesday for your kids?
Yeah, I had a friend in our first homeschool group when we first moved out here told me about this tradition that she does in her family, and I loved it so much. It's because Wednesday is the day that Judas made his deal with the high priest to betray Jesus, and they gave him 40 pieces of silver as the price for betraying Jesus. So as sort of a launching point for a conversation about that, we get 40 quarters. Now that might require leaving the house. So feel free to substitute other coins, even if you have chocolate coins left from St. Patrick's Day or something, or it could be pieces of paper that you cut into coin shapes. We gotta be practical here, but the quarters it seems to be the best way to do it to me, because it really is motivational for the kids. And so we hide 40 quarters in one room in the house, and we let the kids come in and just blast in there and knock the little kids over trying to get all the quarters. And it's really a great starting off point for a conversation. And again, all this stuff the idea is to lead to conversation. And we talk about how Judas could have betrayed Jesus when he knew him so well. He had seen him work miracles. He had heard him teach. He had seen his goodness. And we can talk about the fact that money and the desire for money and the desire for power, and when things don't meet with our preconceived notions, with our expectations, how do we react to that?
Right.
And so we have that conversation about how Judas could have done this, and we talk about how was our behavior in during this search for quarters, and then what would be the best use for this money that we found. And so we can always, better natures can be prevailed upon, and we can talk about, donating it to the poor, putting it in the collection basket, obviously when that's possible. But it's such a fun activity. We have fun memories from it.
That's awesome. Now, one thing Elizabeth and I were talking about earlier this week as we prepared for this morning and we were getting questions from women who have only older children, like the teenagers, and everybody's home, even all the college students are home right now. Do your older kids do Spy Wednesday with you, or do you, before we start talking about Holy Thursday and the Triduum, do you have to split between the fun things for the little kids, or are you keeping the older ones in mind as certain things that really speak to them? And Elizabeth, I know that you are struggling with this, or maybe not struggling, but it's a burden on your heart because you have a lot of older ones home too.
Right. I have pretty much, I think you almost classify that as all older ones at this point. I have 9 kids, mine go from 11 to 31. 2 of them are out of my house. I currently now have 7 of mine under roof, plus a girlfriend. So we've added since the last meeting. We've added a couple more young adults to the quarantine here. So yeah, all of my preparing is pretty much with an eye towards those teens and 20s. So yeah, it's different for sure.
Yeah, it's a lot different. And just like you gotta play to your own strengths when you're liturgical living in the home, you also of course have to consider your audience. And I think it's sort of a family culture thing for us, and because we've always had little kids and new little kids, so my big kids are really good about participating in things for the benefit of the little kids. So it's always really warms my heart if I have sometimes had difficult pregnancies and been not officially bedridden, but just not really up for throwing a lot of family parties, and my big kids have stepped up and sort of taken the reins on things. So something like the quarters, I'll let the bigger kids hide the quarters, and then the little kids can look for them. And if I only had big kids, and for some of my kids, they really want to still participate in stuff and get quarters. So I would be happy to let them do that if they still wanted to. But again, we always talk about, especially with Christmas preparations, that my kids move from team little kid to team big kid. And when you're on team big kid, you get to facilitate these things for the little kids. And so that's something that they enjoy. And we try to not fall into the surly teenagers who don't want to participate in things.
Yep.
So far we have managed to mostly avoid it.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. I can relate to that. I'm the oldest of 8 kids, and in the later years, I was putting the costumes on the kids for their nativity play. I wasn't in the nativity play, but it was just part of what we did in family culture and tradition. And it's just part of being a family too, on some level. So I think that's good. Well, let's talk about, yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, if the activity no longer works for your family, then, there's still the conversation, and food is always a great way to facilitate that. And so, sitting down to a family dinner, which, we maybe have more of an opportunity for that than we ever have in our homes. And that's really the heart of our liturgical living in the home, is the dinner table, and just being able to sit together, enjoy a meal together, and have a discussion together. And that's great for all ages.
Yeah. Let's talk about Holy Thursday and some just real practical things that we can do in our homes this year to commemorate Holy Thursday with our family.
Yeah. So again, when you think about, what are the things in the in church services that are meaningful for Holy Thursday, and that's when it's the institution of the Eucharist. It's the day that Jesus was actually betrayed by Judas. It's the foot washing. And it's the removal of the Blessed Sacrament from the tabernacle in the church, and it's moved to the altar of repose. So we have almost always tried to replicate those things, because it's mostly, Holy Thursday is an evening day, and so most of the church services start at 7 p.m. anyway, which isn't great for me with little kids. So I've sort of always tried to do an approximation of this stuff at home, which coming in handy this year. But we try to do a meal that would replicate the meal that that Jesus and the apostles had, which, not trying to copy an actual Jewish Seder or anything, but just to eat. We usually have lamb chops and bitter herb salad, and some side dishes, and we make a Rice Krispie lamb, which is just Rice Krispie treats molded by hand into vaguely the shape of a lamb, which, if you've ever looked at lamb cakes, if you've never Googled lamb cake, go ahead and do that, because it is hilarious. And lamb cakes are really easy to get wrong. So I figure I'll just sort of shape this, a pile of Rice Krispie treats into a lamb shape, and you're less likely to get terrifying looking lamb. And for my kids, we give up treats during Lent, and so to have a dessert on Holy Thursday is a recognition of the joyfulness of that day, with the institution of the Eucharist and the institution of the priesthood. Mm-hmm. And especially this year, it's so important for us to pray for our priests who are not able to, to shepherd their flocks and have that interaction. A lot of them, are more isolated than we are, because they're not living with their families. So to pray for them on Holy Thursday, I think is really an important act of mercy. But so again, based on a meal, and at the Last Supper, is the foot washing. And I know it's always, it's usually something that happens at that Mass of the Last Supper, but I have found it so meaningful to do as a family, because it is that sort of awkward, humbling thing to have kids washing the feet of their siblings. And that's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. It is an act of humility. And so to do that in a family, I mean, it sounds like a weird, crazy thing to do. And it is a weird, crazy thing to do. It was weird and crazy when Jesus did it. And so I think that, to me, it's even more meaningful to do it in a home, surrounded by your family, because, while we do have a parish family and we have really, close friends that we're missing at church, if you think about who were these people that Jesus was washing the feet of, they're the people that he was closest to, that he was spending all of his time with. And that's who we're stuck in the house with now. And, for my husband to kneel down and wash the feet of one of our teenage kids, for one of our teenage kids to, carefully wash the foot of the baby, it's just, it's really a bonding family experience. And the more awkward it feels, the better.
I love it.
And not to pile on, but the other thing that is traditional on Holy Thursday is the 7 churches visitation. And when the Blessed Sacrament is removed from the tabernacle and placed in a different space in the altar of repose, it's been traditional since, I think, St. Alfonso Liguori in Rome would go around to the 7 major basilicas after that Holy Thursday Mass. So, starting at 9 or 10 o'clock, and he would walk at night, with the idea being that you're following after Jesus's arrest, after the Last Supper. There are places all over Rome where he was taken, to see Pontius Pilate and then to see Herod. And so this idea of walking to these different places and seeing Jesus at all these different, walking with Jesus, all these different places that he would have gone, that has never really worked for me. You can't walk in LA. We don't have 7 churches. We have to drive to things. And again, have always had little kids. So I've never done a real 7 churches visitation where you do it at night to the altars of repose. We have always just gotten in our car in the afternoon and gone to 7 different churches. We find the tabernacle in, a new unfamiliar church, and say a couple of the Stations of the Cross. Now, churches in my archdiocese are actually locked up. You can't even go inside them.
Wow.
For a lot of people, you can visit churches in this. I think that to go into, empty churches is a really, poignant, meaningful thing that get you out of the house in the safety of your car. Might be a really good activity to look forward to. I'm deciding, somebody sent me, I'll have to find the link. I haven't put it on I haven't shared it yet, but I have to go back and find it. Somebody sent me a link to a way to virtually tour great churches of the world. And if you don't want to leave the house, what a cool thing to do, just on the computer, to pick 7 amazing churches that you can look at the inside of, and really, I think, these great works of architecture and great testaments to the faith of Catholics throughout the ages, I think is really inspirational, and a way to connect to Catholics of earlier generations who built these churches in the midst of pestilence and in the midst of wars, and that to see what we are capable of, even in the big picture.
Yeah.
And the other thing we might do, because my kids are really concerned about missing the 7 churches, and we might just get in our car and drive around and stop in front of the churches and pray, and at least, get out of the house.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. Emily had a great question for you, Kendra, about Holy Thursday. She said, when you do the feet washing, are you picking one person from your family to do all of it, or does everybody wash someone's, or how do you do that practically?
Very good question. We put names in a hat, and everybody draws a name. So everybody gets their feet washed, and everybody washes somebody's feet, and somebody takes the baby and pretends to wash somebody's feet. So somebody's not going to get, a couple people aren't going to get their feet washed very well, but.
That's okay. I love it. All right, let's talk about Good Friday then, entering into Good Friday at home. What are some practical things we can do?
I think that, so a couple little things is to wear black. And I didn't mention, for Palm Sunday, we like to wear red. That's the color that the priest wears. But so for Good Friday, to wear black. And people used to wear black when they were in mourning, and people wear black to a funeral. It's just sort of a visual reminder all day long when I look at my little, and a lot of my little kids don't have black to wear, but just something dark and as muted as we can get, just to have that visual reminder during the day that this is a day of mourning, this is a day of sorrow, and to really focus on that, the suffering that Jesus went through for us. And we really focus, all year long. I tell my kids, there are 3 hours this year when I want you guys to just really settle down and chill out. And we are coming up on those 3 hours. From noon to 3 are the hours that Jesus hung on the cross. And so we really very mindfully plan those 3 hours of our year. And if you have kids who aren't going to do well with sitting still, some people are going to just do coloring pages, and I have those available in my shop. There are tons of free resources for coloring pages, but I have a set that's like this art here, that I find really beautiful, and so have kids who can sit quietly, read, or do coloring pages. We say a family rosary, we read the gospel. And for kids who just can't do that, to have an outside, ideally, labor project of there's the old school Liturgical Living in the Home book by Mary Reed Newland, called The Year in Our Children. She talks about that on Holy Thursday she would send her boys out to shovel the chicken manure out of the chicken coop. I remember reading that and being like, okay, liturgical living in the home is clearly not for me, because I don't have any chicken manure, but now I do. But just some sort of, send them out to clean up the sticks in the yard, or just something that something that's quiet and repetitive, that they can think about what we're doing and what's happening in Jesus's life. And to have read that the story of the Passion in your home on Palm Sunday, and then to read again throughout the week what's happening in the Bible on that day, and to spend that time in quiet and in prayer on Good Friday. And then after 3 o'clock, even though it's still Good Friday and it's still a fasting day, but after 3 o'clock, the hard work and the suffering of Jesus is over. And so we kind of dust ourselves off. And in the past, we've always had a fish fry and do the Stations of the Cross and have friends over for a simple catfish dinner. And of course, it'll just be family this year. We're going to really miss having our friends. But to kind of put the work in between noon and 3, and then be like, okay, now we can focus on still waiting, but on really preparing for Easter. So we watch movies usually on Good Friday. Could be the Passion of the Cross, could be could be the Passion, could be a claymation movie that I really like called The Miracle Maker. Or there are other options to make a movie called The Robe. It's this old kind of 60s movie that has a lot of important moving themes. But yeah, so a meal together, a movie together, but really the most important thing you can do on Friday is to spend that time in prayer from noon to 3.
That's beautiful. All right, so then moving into Holy Saturday, what do you do with your family for Holy Saturday?
Yeah, it's funny. Every year before Holy Saturday, I try to get people, like groups and parishes and stuff, to not throw their parish Easter egg hunt on Holy Saturday, and that's not going to be a problem this year. So we don't do Easter celebrations on Holy Saturday, what we do is spend it as a day of prayer and preparation. And I like to think about, what would Mary be thinking on Holy Saturday? She's just watched her son go through the most agonizing torment, and I mean, we know that her heart was broken watching him suffer. But we also know that she knew in some way the bigger picture, the bigger plan. So she must have trusted that somehow this was all going to work out. And I just imagine she must have gone home, taken a deep breath, gotten a good night's sleep, and then set about, tidying up her house and preparing food and looking after the other people in her life. So that's what we do on Holy Saturday. We put away all of our Lent decorations. We take the purple cloths off of our crucifixes. We spend the day cooking and, together in the family, making our desserts and trying not to taste them too much because it's still not Easter, although it is not Lent anymore. It is, my kids like to point out that, their voluntary Lenten disciplines shouldn't count because now it's a different liturgical season. It's the but I don't let them get away with that sort of thing. But yeah, so just a day of sort of quiet and preparation and getting ready to really celebrate Easter. And a couple of little project things. We usually dye our Easter eggs on Holy Saturday, and this year we are going to try to make our own Easter candle because that's such an important part of the Easter liturgy. So I am not an expert on this, and feel free to buy one if you prefer. But we're going to try, there's a couple different methods, and I think we'll actually experiment with them during the week, so I can hopefully report on what we've been able to manage. Our ways to do a tissue transfer onto a candle. You can carve with a carving tool, or even just a ballpoint pen with the pen part taken out. You can use to carve a design. You could have a cross and an alpha and an omega and a year, and it doesn't have to be we can have it a lot fancier than that, but those are the basics. To have a cross in the middle, the year either around the cross or under it, and the symbol for alpha and the symbol for omega. And you can just paint it. I have heard, haven't tried it yet, with just with craft paint, acrylic paint, and make yourself an Easter candle. And then the beautiful Easter vigil, we have to keep all of those people in our prayers who were to be received into the church this year, and that's been put off. And somebody says she has a tutorial on her blog. Oh, good. I need it.
Amy, put your blog link there in the comments so that we can have it there. That's awesome.
Yes, I would really love to see my social media feeds filled up with people's wonky homemade Easter candles. I want that so much. And then, so since we'll be missing the beautiful Easter vigil, but to pray the I don't know if I'll pronounce this right, the Exultet prayer that you can find. You can find that online. There's parts that are, if you find it on the USCCB website, the parts that we are not supposed to say are in parentheses. So those can only be proclaimed by a deacon. So unless you're a deacon, just leave those parts out. But the rest of it can be proclaimed by a layperson. So to pray that prayer, to light our own Easter candle, and again, it's an approximation because we won't have the holy Easter fire, but we'll do our best, and to show our kids, here's the light in the darkness. Here is the symbol of our hope. So to do that on Holy Saturday night. There's also a beautiful homily for Holy Saturday that you can, an ancient homily for Holy Saturday that you can look up, and it's also in my booklets my April booklet. You can find it in there for Holy Saturday. All the readings and stuff I have in the April booklet for Holy Week. But yeah, again, just something to sort of read aloud to the family to prepare ourselves, and then
Beautiful.
And then get to bed for Easter.
That's right. And so we have to talk about this, Kendra. I just printed out your Easter Sunday pamphlet from your website before we start the Zoom call. I don't know how you have time to do this. This is amazing. And what I love is it's not only all the text and prayers that we need, it's beautiful. It's gorgeous. The ancient artwork, the pictures are amazing. So Kendra has this on sale on her website, Easter Sunday of the Resurrection of the Lord. So can we talk about this first, and then maybe we'll talk about some food and crafts and stuff for Easter Day, but let's talk about this for a minute.
Yeah, that's making booklets is sort of how my coronavirus quarantine crazy is coming out. I'm just doing that. But what I wanted was a way for us to participate in the Mass to the best of our abilities, especially on the most important Mass of the year. And again, to remember that Masses aren't canceled. People keep saying that Masses are canceled. Masses aren't canceled. We're just not invited to them. They are still happening. And your priest, who you wish that you could be with on, at the Mass on Easter Sunday, he is saying a Mass, and he is saying a Mass thinking of your intentions. So to remember that there are Masses being said all over the world, and that we can unite ourselves spiritually with those Masses and pray, pray that, that our intentions would be united to the priest as he offers the holy sacrifice of the Mass. But I'm big on following along. We have a subscription to the Magnificat, and I love, I like to have that when I go to Mass and follow along with the readings. We get the Magnificat, which is the kid version of it. But no one, none of these resources were prepared for an Easter Mass without the Mass, without being able to go. So what I wanted for my kids, for my family, is just like the exact words, explain it to me like I'm 10. Exactly what do I say when, what song should I sing, which readings should I do, which prayers should I not say as I'm going through, because all of the prayers are most of the resources that you could find. It doesn't break down what can a priest do and what can a lay person do. So I just wanted to have it, exactly what we should do, what we can do. And whether you're following along with a Mass on TV or whether you're doing the prayers and readings together as a family, I think that this resource will work for you, and a way to still have that feeling of Easter Mass and to unite ourselves spiritually. Oh, the other thing that's included in there is the active spiritual communion that we do. So I left out the prayers of consecration because we wouldn't say those. And interestingly, there's actually, when I started looking, there's a thing called the dry Mass. Saint Jose Maria talks about having to say a dry Mass when he was in hiding in Spain during the lead up to the Spanish Civil War. Oh. We have a guest. So in the lead up to the Spanish Civil War, when he didn't, I keep dropping this, when he didn't have access to the Eucharist, and so he would say a dry Mass, and has been said on board ship when people don't have access to a priest, or a priest who doesn't have access to be able to anything to consecrate. So it is actually a legitimate traditional practice to say a dry Mass. And I think something that'll be so memorable for our family, and that's what we want, is to create these beautiful memories and to be making do in a difficult time.
Right, absolutely. So for Kendra's resource, CatholicAllYear.com, and you'll find all her printables there. She's got coloring, she's got printables and booklets for the different parts of this week coming up. So definitely go there and check that out. I downloaded mine in like the 5 minutes before we went on Zoom here. Super easy, and they're beautiful. She's got beautiful artwork in all of her booklets too. So we're going to open it up for questions. If you have a question for Kendra, go ahead and type it in the chat box now. One question that we had coming in different forms throughout this week, Elizabeth, was about your spouse and bringing your husband into this celebration at home, and maybe your spouse is not even Catholic. So do you want to kind of phrase that question, Elizabeth, that you've been receiving and chat with Kendra about it?
Sure. There have been a couple of questions, just so I'll give you kind of a conglomeration of the two, but essentially the two cases. One, if your husband isn't Catholic but has been supportive of you raising children Catholic, the go-to has always been take the kids to mass and do the parish CCD or whatever. Now that it's all in home, that disparity is really showing itself, and how to be respectful of him and not have him be the other, but also bring some of these at-home liturgical traditions into daily practice in the house. So that's one. And then the other is where a husband is Catholic, but is not really leading liturgically, like not, this person was saying that, reading your blog, it's so obvious that your husband is such a strong leader. But if your husband isn't that kind of a leader and you really don't want to make waves because you are all under roof and you don't want to wreck a holiday, then what?
Yeah, so I think, let's start in the best case scenario and move along from there. That the church is a hierarchy, and that it starts with the Pope and it goes through the cardinals and the bishops and the parish priests, and all the way down to the head of a household. And the head of a household has specific legitimate authority and authority to bless the people in the family, and an authority to bless our home and our children. And so the head of the household is an actual real position, and that would usually be the father of the house. If that is if that is not the case in your home, maybe you're the head of the household. Maybe you live with your parents and so your father is the head of the household, or whoever that person is, whoever is the head of your household does have a real legitimate faculty in all of this to lead prayers, to ask God's blessing on things and people. So I think that's a good perspective to share with your husband, that it actually is better if he can lead the prayers. If that's not something that he's comfortable with, then maybe it turns out that secretly right now you are the head of your household when it comes to liturgical practices. And if that's true, then I think that authority falls on you to lead in a way that's gentle and and inspiring. My dad was not Catholic growing up. He has and so it was just my mom taking us to mass, making sure that we were prepared and received our sacraments, and she was always, I look back now, and she was such a good example of just loving example to my father. And she wasn't somebody who was arguing about it or making demands. She was just taking us to mass and having our family traditions in the home. And out of the blue, my dad announced when I was in college that he had signed himself up for RCIA, and now he's Catholic. And it's hard for me to even remember back then to a time when my dad wasn't Catholic and wasn't a part of our faith practice. But so to just in general have hope and and know that your prayers for your husband and your example of what your faith life is like is probably the most important thing you can do. But yeah, you have to know your room, and you have to know what's gonna make the people who live in your home comfortable or uncomfortable. But these prayers that we can come together and do, to read the Bible aloud together, and just to have a talk about history and what happened on each of the days. And I think that if it feels like doing all of these things that we do in our house would be too much, then you don't do that. And but it really is a great opportunity if it's something that your husband would be open to, but to just give him that responsibility to lead the family. And the way that it works in our house is I do all the prep work. I amass the resources, I cook the meal, and my husband is essential, and is still working outside the home. So our schedule in that way hasn't really changed. So, I do, I make sure that we have the foods and the activities and the prayers either pulled up on the phone or printed out. And so then when we sit down at the table, I can say, all right, here's the thing we're doing tonight. Do you want to lead this prayer? And so it's sort of a little thing, but as much as I definitely want my kids to be involved in these traditions, and to they get excited about leading things, but to make sure that that the adults in our family, that it doesn't, I don't want it to feel like a kid thing, leading a decade of the rosary. We let our little kids do it, but I want to make sure that the grown-ups and my big kids lead also, because I don't want it to appear to be a little kid thing that you would do and then grow out of.
Great. Elizabeth, do you have any just follow-up things because I know you've been receiving these questions and pondering them. Did you have anything you wanted to add for bringing your spouse in? I thought what Kendra said was awesome, but I know that you always are pondering these things too.
Yeah, and this one came probably 2 or 3 days ago, so I've been thinking about it a lot. And I think some of it's temperament. Kendra said, you kind of have to read the room. Your room, your situation, and how much somebody is going to be comfortable with. I think that it's important. Maybe my one thing, because we're hitting our hour here, but my one thing that I would strongly recommend is look at your resource, the thing that you might want him to lead. Read through the whole thing. Don't let it be a surprise to either of you. And then, approach it. So basically make sure it's something that you're going to be able to maybe be on the same page with. Another resource that we talked about, Stephanie, was Erica Ty Campbell put together a Holy Week that is kind of, I think, geared towards being super, super simple, that might work in a situation that Eric and I kind of chatted a little bit yesterday, and the priest who wrote it for her and with her was very cognizant of the fact that all of a sudden there are people under roof who may be coming from different places, and not everybody is in the ideal little kid and two grown-ups that are on the straight and narrow. So that resource might be one that can be adapted. But I would pray about it. I would ask the Blessed Mother for the right words. Just ask her to please beg the Holy Spirit to give you the right words to approach this at the beginning of the week. Pick and choose the things that you most want to hit. Show him the resources available, because sometimes it's just a matter of, I don't know how to lead. I've never done this. My dad didn't do this. I didn't grow up Catholic. Don't push me into this role that I'm not prepared for. So as much as you can, prepare him, and show him the resources, print them out, get them ready on your phone, queued up. So when you have this conversation, he doesn't feel like it's all too much and kind of be defensive because he's not adequately equipped. And then also, I think you share that none of us are adequately equipped. Just be honest and say, I do this with the kids. I'm never 100% equipped. I'm relying on the gifts of the Holy Spirit to help me to teach them, to help me to pray aloud. Frankly, a lot of us, that's awkward. You know, a lot of us, prayer is a very personal thing. And even in the four walls of our house, praying aloud with a lot of people in our house is not a natural. It's awkward, it's hard, and it's okay. Give yourself grace if it's hard for you, and just take it all to prayer. Just, you know, ask the Blessed Mother to be your mom and your mentor, and go from there. And God bless you, because I know this is tricky.
Yeah, I've seen Erica Ty's resource too, and you can get it at her blog, which is beaheart.com. And it has a very, very simple and very short and sort of ecumenical in feel. You know, my resources tend to be like super old timey, like medieval Catholic sources. That's how we roll. But yeah, I know that is not the style everybody's looking for. And her resource is beautifully designed and something that, you know, for each day, just a few little quick things to hit and move on. It's great that she put that together.
All right.
And I think there are some other resources that you wanted to just quickly highlight, Stephanie.
Yep, I'm going to do that right at the end. So first, I want to thank you, Kendra, for being here with us, especially so early Pacific time. This has been awesome. So awesome. I can't wait to make my Rice Krispie lamb this year, because we've never done that. My boys are going to just flip out for that. So I'm really, really excited. This has been so great. We have recorded all of our Zoom calls that Elizabeth and I have done. So this afternoon, this call will be up on YouTube, and I know that you have 1 or 5 or 10 girlfriends who need to hear this and who need some practical tips from Kendra. So I encourage you to just send a text message to a couple girlfriends, just reach out and shoot them the YouTube link from this call so that they can be encouraged and thinking about their Holy Week too. And then just real quickly, I'm going to do, I'm going to hit this. I'm going to, let's see, can I put in the comments? In the comments, I just put the different websites for what I'm going to show you. I'm going to do a little show and tell here. First, Kendra's resources, and this is not the only one. The one I have printed out is her Easter Sunday prayers, but they are all super inexpensive. For a couple bucks, you can automatically download and print either in form like this, a full-size page, or you can make them into booklets, which is awesome. If you have a big family, you might want to make everyone a booklet so they can follow along. So that's catholicallyear.com. And then Catherine Bogner put together a Holy Week at home retreat. And if you go to her website, which is looktohimandberadiant.com, you have all the links. She has linked to Formed, she's linked to Kendra, all kinds of resources so that you can pick and choose what works best for you. She also has the readings for every day, and she also has it in Spanish. A couple people in the comments were asking about Spanish resources. So looktohimandberadiant.com is for Catherine's resource. She also has a Holy Week journal, especially for little kids. That might be fun. You can put it into booklet form and they can journal along every day of Holy Week. And then we just mentioned, I meant to print this out in color, mine's black and white, but this is the first page of Erica Ty Campbell's Holy Week at Home. It's another free resource we just talked about a couple minutes ago, and you can find that at beaheart.com, and it's right there on the home page, free quick download as well. And then finally, Catholic Family Crate. Alyssa in Denver, who owns Catholic Family Crate, has put together the Holy Week at Home Success Kit. And I think this one is especially great if you have little kids, because it includes a Bible verse to memorize and little handwriting sheets for each day of Holy Week, coloring pages for each day, and also some really simple recipes that include ingredients that you probably already have at your house when it's hard to go to the grocery store and find, you know, all the specialty recipes. So this one's really good, I think, especially for families with little ones, and that can be found for free download at catholicfamilycrate.com. So do you have any other resources to mention, Elizabeth? Those are the ones that I've been finding this week.
You know, I mean, I think that those are, whoops, go ahead, Kendra.
Oh, I'm just looking, Katie Zubrod has her Easter candle.
Oh, it's beautiful, Katie. Wow.
It's a baptismal candle. This is what we do for our kids. So I trace this and tape it on and then paint it. And then, yeah.
Great. I love that.
Love it.
I'm not on top of life, so this is what I'm working on. It's late for her baptism, so I just print it and tape it on, and I've engraved it.
Because Cheryl has her paint.
Yeah, someone has my paint. So this is my oldest daughter's that I haven't finished.
Beautiful.
Time to get stuff done.
Yep.
So, but we just got it at a religious store. It's the beeswax ones that the church have.
That's
Yeah,
awesome.
and I found those online at Church Supply Warehouse. I'm not sure how fast their shipping is, but yeah, to get the beeswax ones is ideal. They're a lot more expensive, so you don't have to, but they smell really good.
Yeah, my husband reminded me it's 1.5 inches thick.
Okay.
Perfect.
Nice.
A detail I don't remember.
Well, thank
Very
you all
nice. Those are
so
beautiful.
much for sharing. Melissa, thank you for sharing your construction paper palms, all of you jumping in the comments. It's been so helpful and so great. We hope that you have a beautiful Holy Week with your family. And again, I'll have this YouTube up on my Instagram and Elizabeth's Instagram in a couple hours. So you can find Elizabeth at elizabethfoss.com and at Elizabeth Foss on Instagram. And I'm at Stephanie Weinert on Instagram. We'll have that up for you very, very shortly. Have a wonderful Holy Week, Kendra. Thank you so much for being with us. So grateful. It's been so fun.
Wait,
Go ahead, Elizabeth.
1 second, Stephanie. So we're going to switch up the schedule a little bit. We just want to give you guys a heads up before we leave today. So we're going to take Holy Week off and just kind of have quiet. And then we'll be back with you Easter week. So look for announcements and we'll let you know what's coming next. But I just didn't want you to think you were missing something this week. We're not gonna do Thursday, Saturday during Holy Week.
We're gonna be washing our kids' feet, so we're gonna be busy. And then we'll be back. All right, everybody. God bless you. Have a wonderful day. Thank you again, Kendra.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.
Kendra.